Hey guys, tonight we are setting sail into a time when Athens was not just a city of marble columns and philosophers, but also a noisy, fish-scented port. You are about to become a fisherman at Piraeus, the great harbour of Athens. And let me warn you right away, you probably won't survive this job. The sea is rough, the sun is merciless, and the fish themselves seem to have personal grudges against you. But don't worry, you're safe in bed, and I'm here to tell the tale. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, comment below where you're re-listening from and what time it is right now. I always love seeing how far this little community has reached. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air at Piraeus smells of salt, tar, and yesterday's catch. You wake before the sun has even crept over the Acropolis, rubbing sleep from your eyes while gulls squawk like impatient customers already demanding their breakfast. The wooden planks beneath your feet creak as you step onto the dock. Your little shack by the shore is nothing glamorous, just planks and rope, patched together with hope, but it has been home for as long as you can remember. The port itself is alive even at dawn. Merchants roll barrels down ramps, slaves carry amphorae on their shoulders, and dockhands shout instructions in voices so hoarse they sound like they gargle with gravel. You stretch, feeling the mild ache in your shoulders. Years of hauling nets have carved muscles onto your frame, though they re-less the sculpted statues of heroic athletes and more the practical cords of rope needed to get through each day. The Saronic Gulf is calm for now, but fishermen never trust it for long. There's an old saying, the sea is a friend until it eyes and tea. Your father used to repeat it, and sometimes you hear his voice in the crash of the surf. As you look out over the harbour, you can see larger ships tied up nearby trading vessels, bound for islands like Chios or Rhodes. Their sails furled and cargo ready. These are not your kind of ships. Yours is a modest boat, humble and stubborn, just enough to hold nets, baskets, and the hope of a decent catch. Still, there is pride in it. This boat was handed down from your father, who patched it with his own calloused hands. The paint has long since peeled away, leaving raw wood exposed, but each scar tells a story. You start your morning by checking the sky. The Greeks did not have fancy barometers, but experience is its own teacher. A thin line of clouds hangs faint on the horizon, nothing threatening yet. The wind is cool, smelling faintly of olives from inland groves. You whisper a small prayer to Poseidon, not too loudly, because one never wants to seem desperate, but just enough to acknowledge that his moods rule your livelihood. Historians still argue whether ordinary fishermen like you truly believed in the gods or simply performed rituals out of habit. But on mornings like this, it feels safer to hedge your bets. The port itself has a music to it. Rope smacking against masts, wood grinding against stone piers, donkeys braying, children laughing as they steal bits of bread from distracted vendors. You pass one boy who's dangling a line into the shallows, convinced he'll catch something grand. You remember doing the same when you were younger, before realizing that the fish in these shallow waters are cleverer than philosophers. Mainstream history tells us that Piraeus was Athens' lifeline, its connection to grain, trade, and the wider Aegean world. Without the port, the city would starve. and no amount of lofty debates in the agora could fill empty stomachs. But here, at the lowest rung of that system, your world is much simpler. Catch enough fish to trade, earn a few coins, and maybe have some left over to share with friends in the evening. The empire feels very far away when your belly is rumbling. Your boat waits at the edge of the dock, bobbing gently in the tide. You run your hand along the hull, inspecting yesterday's wear. A loose knot here, a fraying rope, there's always something. Fishermen joke that boats are like stubborn mules. They need constant coaxing, patching, and the occasional kick. You untie the mooring and tug the boat closer, the water slapping against wood with a rhythm older than any poem. Before you leave, you prepare the day's tools. Nets are coiled carefully, though inevitably some strands tangle into hopeless snarls. Your hands, scarred and calloused, know the patterns by touch alone. Each knot feels like a bead in a rosary, something to count, something to fix. There is satisfaction in the ritual, though your stomach grumbles impatiently. You tuck away a small cloth bundle bread, olives, and a sliver of dried fish for later. There's also a superstition you never skip. From a pouch at your side, you take a tiny seashell, one your mother once pressed into your palm. You toss it lightly into the harbor with a muttered word, a quiet offering to whatever spirits might be listening. Some laugh at such gestures, but the sea has claimed too many boats for you to risk arrogance. Quirky fact, some fishermen even smeared squid ink on their boats, believing it warded off evil eyes. Whether it worked or not, the ink certainly made the boats look like they'd survived a bar fight. The first hint of sunlight stretches across the water, turning the surface from dull grey to liquid gold. Athens itself stirs in the distance, the Acropolis still a dark silhouette against the brightening sky. Somewhere, priests are already preparing sacrifices, and somewhere else, politicians are rehearsing speeches. But here, on the dock, it is only you, your boat, and the endless sea. You place one foot inside, feeling the familiar tilt as the hull accepts your weight. The ropes creak, the wood groans, and you settle into your seat with the practiced comfort of someone who knows both the risks and rewards that await. The gulls follow as you push off, their shrieks echoing overhead. They know that wherever you go, scraps will eventually follow. For now, the world is hushed, caught in that delicate balance between night and day. You dip the oar into the water, and the first stroke carries you away from the dock, away from the crowded noise, into the calm uncertainty of the Gulf. Already, the city begins to fade behind you. The cries of merchants dull, the clatter of carts softens, replaced by the gentle slap of waves. You are part of a lineage stretching back generations. Men and women who trusted these waters, and sometimes paid dearly for that trust. As the horizon brightens, you find yourself caught between anticipation and unease. Every day is the same, yet every day is unpredictable. And so the day begins. A fisherman at dawn, setting out from the port of Athens, following the rhythm of tides and the whims of the gods. The boat rocks lightly as you settle in, the wooden oars resting against their grooves, ready to dip into the water. Before you leave the safety of the dock behind, there is still the small matter of preparation. No fisherman with sense ever hurries this part. Every careless moment on land becomes a disaster at sea. The first thing is the nets. They look simple from a distance, just rope knotted into endless squares. But each net is a small world of problems waiting to trip you. You unwind the coiled mass, fingers following familiar lines, tugging out tangles. The work is patient, almost meditative. You pick out stray bits caught from yesterday, tiny crab claws, broken shells, and one stubborn fish scale that clings like it still has business here. The smell of the nets is pungent, that mix of brine and rot that never washes away no matter how many times you scrub them. Some say the smell alone is what lures fish back. Historians still argue whether ancient fishermen relied more on carefully woven net designs or on sheer persistence. But to you, it feels like the nets themselves have moods. At the bottom of the boat rests a clay jar with a little olive oil inside. Not for food, not today, but for the wood. You dip your hand and smear a thin coat along a joint where the hull leaks ever so slightly. The trick is to keep the wood from drying and splitting. The boat complains, like an old man with bad knees, but with a little care, it stays afloat. You mutter, half sarcastic, half prayerful, "Don't sink today, you've got work to do." Nearby, another fisherman is already fussing over his own craft. He calls across, in a voice rough from years of salt air, "Check your knots, boy, or you'll be swimming." You grin at him. Though you've heard the same advice every morning since you were strong enough to row. He laughs at his own words, teeth missing, eyes crinkled like parchment. That's part of the ritual to the dockside banter. The exchange of warnings no one really needs, but everyone says anyway. Your own offerings are modest. A pinch of barley scattered into the waves, the faint splash swallowed instantly by the sea. You remember your grandmother insisting that fish had ears, that they heard such gestures. Remembered them and chose which boat to visit in return. It's a comforting thought, even if you're skeptical. A more fringe belief says that whispering your name into the tide ties your fate to the water. Some men swear by it. You skip that one. No need to let the sea know your name too clearly. The sun pushes higher, brushing the Acropolis in soft orange light, and the air warms enough to chase the night's chill from your arms. You place your basket on the stern, weighted slightly so it doesn't slide when the boat tips. Inside it, rope, a small flask of watered wine, your cloth bundle of food. It doesn't look like much, but for the next 10 hours, it's your world. Finally, you push off. The oar meets the water with a satisfying thunk, the kind that tells you the day has truly begun. Rowing is both muscle and rhythm. Pull too hard and the boat jerks sideways. Pull too soft and you might drift nowhere. You fall into the practiced pace, arms and back moving in steady arcs, breath sensing with each dip. The water slaps in time, like a drum keeping beat. As the dock slips away, the noises fade, fewer shouts, fewer clatters, until only gulls and the creak of wood remain. Your little craft slides free, carried by a tide that seems eager to take you farther. The city shrinks into the distance, a cluster of stone and smoke. It is strange how quickly Athens becomes just another outline, how the mighty columns that tourists would one day admire mean so little from this angle. From here, the temple on the hill is not a monument but a landmark, the same way a fisherman might steer by a tree or cliff. You pause for a moment, resting on the oars. The air here is clearer, uncut by the dust of the streets. You can smell nothing but salt, taste it on your lips, feel it on your skin. The breeze brushes past with a cool hand, carrying hints of pine from the hills behind the city. Somewhere in the distance, a larger ship prepares to leave. its sail unfurling like a slow heartbeat. Merchant vessels don't bother with dawn. They wait for proper winds. You watch with a mixture of envy and relief. Their journeys last weeks, months even, while yours is measured in hours. But then again, storms swallow them whole. Your risks are smaller but daily, always close, always personal. Rowing farther, you slip past a buoy just, a crude piece of wood bobbing on a rope, but to you, it marks the line between the safety of the harbor and the unpredictability of the Gulf. It's like crossing a threshold, stepping out of one world and into another. Some fishermen spit over the side here, an odd ritual to ward off bad luck. You do it too, partly out of habit, partly because the sea takes notice of those who don't. You keep rowing. The muscles in your arms heat and strain, but there's comfort in the effort. It feels like waking up fully, body joining mind in the work ahead. The sound of the oar slicing through the water becomes hypnotic. You remember your father teaching you this motion: pull smooth, pull steady, let the sea do the rest. He'd say that rowing is less about strength than respect. If you fight the water, it wins. If you move with it, you glide. Above you, the sky is shifting. The pale orange deepens into gold, and streaks of pink scatter across the horizon. Birds wheel overhead, watching with greedy eyes. They know boats mean fish, and fish mean scraps. One swoops low, daring, before darting away again. You can't help but chuckle. Even gulls seem to understand commerce. By now, the port is a memory behind you. Ahead lies only open water, rippling gently in the morning light. It feels endless, though you know every inlet, every stretch of current. Still, the sea is never exactly the same twice. That's what keeps you coming back. One day it is calm and generous. Another it is cruel and empty. You never know which version you'll meet until you're already too far to turn back. A thought crosses your mind. One your grandfather used to share. The sea has moods like a woman. You grin at the old saying, shaking your head at its simplicity, but there's truth in it. You've seen men set out on cheerful mornings and return on stretchers. You've seen empty baskets turn into feasts in just an hour. The sea chooses. You only ask. Your boat drifts now, oars resting across the hull, nets ready. The city is gone from sight. It is only you, your tools, and the waiting Gulf. The day has begun in earnest, and there is no turning back until the work is done. The city has melted into the distance now, its noise replaced by the soft hush of water and the occasional caw of gulls circling overhead. You're alone with your boat, your breath, and the slow pull of the oars. This is the part of the morning where time stretches out, neither hurried nor fully relaxed, suspended like the tide itself. Rowing isn't glamorous, but it becomes second nature. The weight of the oar is familiar in your palms, the wood worn smooth by countless mornings just like this. You dip, pull, lift, dip again each stroke, steady and patient, the boat slicing forward across the surface. Your muscles burn in a gentle, nagging way, but it's a sensation you've learned to welcome. It means the boat is moving. It means you are doing what you were born into. Every now and then, you pause, letting the boat glide on its own momentum. The sound of dripping water from the lifted oar is almost musical, plunking back into the gulf with a soft patter. The surface ripples out in small rings, disturbed only for a moment before smoothing again. The Saronic Gulf has a way of pretending calmness, as though it were a tame creature. You know better. Beneath that glassy surface is another world, shadows that dart, shoals that shimmer, and depths that hide more than they reveal. You adjust your course slightly, watching the sun creep higher in the east. The golden light spreads across the water, scattering diamonds across the surface. It's beautiful, yes, but also blinding. You squint, lifting a hand to shade your eyes. Somewhere behind you, Athens glows faintly in the haze, but you don't look back often. Fishermen say it's bad luck to stare at the land once you've set out, as though the sea itself will sense your longing and punish you with an empty net. Quirky, perhaps, but superstition and survival are close cousins here. As you pull the oars, your thoughts drift. You think of the first time your father let you row on your own. The oars had felt like tree trunks, too heavy to manage. Your strokes were clumsy, and the boat zigzagged embarrassingly while the older men laughed from their vessels nearby. Your father hadn't scolded. He'd simply said, "Keep your rhythm. The sea loves rhythm." And over time, he was right. You learned the rhythm until it became muscle memory, until the boat responded to you as naturally as a hound to its master. The smell of salt intensifies as you move farther from the shore. It isn't just a scent, it's a film that clings to your skin, to your clothes, even to your thoughts. It's sharp and raw, like something ancient and alive. You imagine this same smell on the ships that carried warriors to Troy centuries ago, or on the triremes that once patrolled these waters during wars with Sparta. Mainstream history reminds us that Piraeus was once a hub of naval power, launching fleets that shaped the fate of empires. But for you, it's just the smell of work, the scent that tells you you're exactly where you should be. A splash nearby draws your eyes. A school of small fish leaps briefly from the water, their scales flashing like coins in the sun. The gulls dive instantly, shrieking and flapping, snatching what they can before the rest vanish back into the depths. You watch them, half envious, half amused. The birds have it easy, no nets, no aching arms, just sharp beaks and sharper instincts. Some fishermen curse them as thieves, but secretly you admire their persistence. You lean into another stretch of rowing, feeling the burn deepen in your shoulders. Sweat trickles along your back, though the morning air is still cool. You pause, letting the boat drift again, and reach for the small flask of watered wine. The clay feels cool against your palm, the liquid thin but refreshing as it slides down your throat. It's not luxury, but it steadies you. Bread and olives will come later, but for now, this is enough. Out here, without the city in sight, you begin to notice details that vanish near the shore. The faint hum of cicadas carries across from the mainland, blending with the low whistle of wind skimming the waves. The water changes color, with the depth pale green where it's shallow, deepening to a heavy blue as the bottom falls away. It's not just scenery, it's knowledge. You learn to read the colors to know where fish might gather. Darker water means deeper shoals, often where bigger fish hide. Pale stretches might promise smaller schools, easier to net but less profitable. Historians still argue whether fishermen in ancient Greece navigated mostly by landmarks, stars, or instinct. You suspect the answer is all three. You glance up at the sky, noting the position of the rising sun. You mark the faint silhouette of an island on the horizon, a place you know well as a reference point. And somewhere in your gut, a quiet sense tells you where the boat should go next. It's not magic, but it feels close to it. The work is steady, almost monotonous, but there's peace in that. No speeches to endure, no market haggling to irritate you, no philosophers pestering you with riddles about virtue. Just you, the sea, and the faint rhythm of your own effort. You wonder, sometimes, if this is what freedom truly feels like, not the freedom the politicians shout about, but the quiet kind, where no one's watching you, no one's demanding anything. Just you, breathing in time with the waves. You push on, the city gone completely now, replaced by nothing but water in every direction. For a brief moment, it feels as though the world is only this boat, sea, sky. You rest the oars again, letting the boat glide on its own. The silence is so complete it feels heavy, pressing in on your ears. Then a gull cries overhead, breaking the spell, reminding you the world still hums along even when you drift. The boat rocks gently, creaking as if reminding you that it, too, is alive in its own way. You reach down, trailing your fingers in the cool water. It stings slightly from the salt, but it's a sting you've grown to love. You scoop a handful and splash it over your face, washing away sweat, waking yourself fully. Droplets cling to your beard and hair, sparkling briefly before the sun steals them away. You take a deep breath. The real work hasn't even begun yet. Rowing is just the prelude, the slow opening act to the play. Ahead lies the casting, the waiting, the pulling, the bargaining with fate. But for now, you ride into calm waters, into possibility, into whatever the day decides to give you. The boat drifts forward, its gentle rocking like a cradle, but you know this is only the pause before real labor. The oars lie across the hull, resting now, as you prepare for the first true act of the day. Casting the nets, this is not something done in haste. Casting a net is equal parts strength, rhythm, and something you could almost call artistry. You rise carefully, balancing against the sway of the boat. The floor is scattered with coils of rope and netting, and you take a moment to untangle them. Nets are the fisherman's true companions. They are patched and mended endlessly, and they carry the fingerprints of everyone who has ever worked them. Your father's repairs are still visible in certain knots, thicker and tighter than your own. You sometimes imagine him standing here beside you, correcting the angle of your throw, grumbling when you rushed through the task. The sea remembers, he used to say. If you cast with carelessness, it will repay you with emptiness. The net itself is heavy, even when dry. The rope, darkened from years of salt, soaking into its fibers. Weighted edges, tiny lead sinkers tied to the ends, ensure that when you cast it, the net spreads like a circle, sinks swiftly, and traps what swims beneath. You coil a section into your arm, holding part of the net draped over your shoulder. Your stance is wide, your knees slightly bent to absorb the boat's shifting. You breathe in deeply. This is where rhythm matters most. With one practiced motion, you fling the net outward. It unrolls in the air, not perfectly circular, but close, glimmering briefly in the sun before slapping the water with a satisfying splash. You watch it spread, the sinkers tugging the edges down, the whole net blooming like a dark flower under the surface. For a moment, everything is still. The water ripples, then smooths again, hiding your work. The boat drifts silently. You lean against the side, staring into the gulf, as if your eyes could pierce its secrets. Patience is as important as strength in fishing. The net must settle. The fish must wander into it of their own accord. You cannot force them. You can only invite them. It feels almost like waiting for someone to answer a question you've asked softly. While you wait, you glance toward the horizon. A few other small boats are out already, scattered like dots across the water. You know most of their owners, at least by sight. Some will wave if you pass close enough. Others guard their spots jealously, as though the fish below belonged personally to them. One man you recognize, a hunched figure with a red cloth tied around his head, has been fishing these waters longer than you. VA been alive. His nets are more patched than original rope, but somehow he always manages to bring in a full catch. Some say it's skill, others whisper he speaks to the sea in a tongue only it understands. Historians still argue whether fishermen's luck was mostly instinct, or if there were hidden techniques long lost. But either way, his results make men shake their heads in envy. The gulls hover above your boat, impatient. They know this part well. They circle, wings flashing white against the morning sky, waiting for the moment when the net rises again, when scraps or unlucky fish wriggle free. Their calls are harsh, almost mocking, as though urging you to hurry. You ignore them. You know better than to rush. You shift your weight, crouching to grip the rope attached to the net. It's slack for now, floating loosely, but the time is coming to pull. You brace your feet, feel the wood under your soles, and begin to draw the rope, hand over hand. At first it is smooth, easy, just rope sliding through your palms. Then the weight begins to build. The net resists, heavy with water. Each pull is slower, harder, the fibers biting into your skin. Your arms tense, your back leans, your body working as one to haul the circle closer. The first hint comes in a sudden vibration, a twitch along the rope. Something alive down there thrashes, tangling itself deeper. The net grows heavier, jerks against your pull. You grit your teeth, leaning into the strain, hand over hand, until the surface breaks with a splash. Silver flashes, the net rises dripping, its threads glittering with trapped bodies. Small fish wriggle violently, scales scattering light like shards of glass. A couple leap in wild desperation, only to fall back, tangled hopelessly. You heave the net over the side, spilling part of the catch into the boat with a wet thud. They flop and glisten on the boards, mouths gasping, tails beating frantically. The sound is a chorus of life pulled unwillingly from its world. You work quickly, shaking the net, untangling fins, tossing fish into the basket. Your hands move with efficiency born from repetition. Each fish is weighed briefly by eye, measured not in numbers but in meals and coins. Some are small, hardly worth more than soup broth, but a few larger ones gleam promisingly. You reset the net, shaking off debris, folding it carefully again. The sea does not give all at once. It is a conversation, back and forth. You cast again, the net flying outward in another practiced arc, spreading, sinking. This time, while you wait, your mind drifts. You think of the strange stories tied to this craft. Quirky beliefs pass from fisherman to fisherman, tales of fish that glow with divine light, of sea creatures that aren't fish at all but omens. One story tells of a dolphin that once guided a lost boat back to shore, only to vanish without a trace. Another insists that some fish are cursed, carrying storms in their scales. You've never seen such things yourself. But you can't deny there are mysteries in these waters you'll never fully understand. You pull again, the rope biting your palms, and another burst of silver breaks the surface. The basket fills slowly, steadily, each haul adding to the day's promise. The boat tilts slightly under the shifting weight. Sweat beads at your temples, dripping down your nose. Your breathing grows heavier, but it's the good kind, the kind that says the work is worth it. You glance upward, the sun is climbing now. No longer soft gold, but sharper, brighter, pressing heat into your shoulders. The day is awakening, and so too is the sea. The rhythm of casting and pulling becomes your heartbeat. The net, your voice. The fish, your reply. Out here, far from the noise of Athens, the world shrinks to something simple. Just you, your boat, and the endless patience of the Gulf. The basket at your feet is no longer empty. A thin sheen of scales and slime glistens against the wood where fish have thrashed and stilled. The early catches are promising, though you know better than to celebrate too soon. The sea is fickle, gives in bursts, and then leaves you waiting in silence, as though testing your endurance. You lean back for a moment, catching your breath. The sun, now fully risen, paints the waves in glaring white streaks. You pull the brim of your rough cap lower against the brightness, but it doesn't help much. Sweat beads along your forehead and trickles down the side of your face, mixing with the salt spray clinging to your skin. You taste it on your lips, sharp and bitter. This part of the morning always slows. After the first bursts of activity, there is a lull. You've cast and hauled, but now comes the longer waiting game, the in-between moments where the sea refuses to reveal what it holds. You sit with your back against the side of the boat, knees bent, arms draped loosely over them. The rope of the net rests slack across your lap, its dampness seeping into your tunic. The water laps gently against the hull. Each wavelet makes a hollow plunk, echoing as though the boat itself were a drum. You focus on that rhythm, letting it settle your thoughts. The horizon stretches unbroken, a wide blue plain that seems to go on forever. It is both comforting and unnerving comforting because it feels infinite. Unnerving because you know how small you truly are in comparison. Your mind drifts as easily as the boat. You think of Athens, though it feels distant now. Behind those city walls, men argue in the agora. Philosophers debate. Merchants shout over prices. It is a chorus of ambition and noise. Here, the only debates are internal: how long to wait before pulling the net, whether to row further out, whether to risk chasing a shadow you thought you saw beneath the surface. Historians still argue whether ordinary Athenians valued fishermen highly, or whether they saw you as just another cog in the machine of survival. Out here, titles and opinions mean nothing. The sea decides your worth each day. A gull swoops down to bold and lands on the edge of your boat, its yellow eyes fix on the basket of fish, unashamed in its greed. You wave an arm lazily, and it hops back, squawking in protest before flapping away. You laugh softly to yourself. Even the birds know the rhythm of waiting. They hover where nothing happens, and they strike the moment you blink. The sun climbs higher. Heat presses down like a hand on your shoulders, urging sweat from every pore. You pull your flask from the basket, take a long drink, and sigh as the coolness cuts briefly through the warmth. You break a piece of bread from your cloth bundle, chew slowly, letting it soften on your tongue. A few olives follow, their sharp saltiness almost overwhelming. This simple meal is enough to stretch your energy, though it does little to silence the hunger gnawing for something fresher. The boat sways gently. lulling you into half-consciousness. The silence grows heavy, but not empty. There's always movement in the sea. Always some unseen life brushing against the currents below. You think of the myths told about such moments of stillness. Sailors once said it meant a god was passing unseen, disturbing neither wave nor wind as he slipped beneath the surface. Some fishermen whisper that when the sea grows to calm, it is only gathering strength for the storm to come. You glance at the rope, still slack, still quiet. You resist the urge to pull too soon. Patience is as important as muscle here. Cast too often and you waste your strength. Wait too long and you risk losing what wandered in. It's a game of balance, and balance never favors the restless. To pass the time, you hum a low tune your mother used to sing while kneading dough. It isn't a song for the sea, but it fills the air enough to keep your mind awake. The gulls cry overhead as though mocking your melody, but you keep humming anyway. Sound travels strangely across the water. Sometimes your own voice feels like it is coming back to you from the horizon. A shadow flits beneath the boat, dark against the blue-green depths. You lean over quickly, peering down. A school of fish, sleek and darting, passes beneath, scattering like sparks. Your heart quickens. They may have already tangled themselves in the net. You grip the rope, testing its weight. This time, there's a tugs, subtle but real. You brace your feet against the boards, lean back, and begin to haul. The rope resists more firmly now, the tension growing with each pull. Your muscles tighten, the fibers of the rope burning your palms. The boat tips slightly, tilting toward the strain. You heave again, sweat dripping, breaths loud in your ears. Then the surface breaks. The net rises, dripping and glittering, alive with motion. Fish thrash wildly, their bodies glimmering like scattered coins under the sun. You pull hard, tipping them into the basket, where they flop and twist until exhaustion stills them. The basket grows heavier, and so does the satisfaction in your chest. The silence has paid off. You untangle the net again, shaking free a stubborn tail, resetting the coils with hands that move automatically now. The work is repetitive, but there is comfort in repetition. You sling the net once more over your arm, preparing for another cast. The sea stretches, endless and shimmering, patient as ever. You breathe deep, gathering yourself. The lull is over for now, but you know it will return. It always does. That is the fisherman's bargaining moments of frenzy punctuating hours of quiet. The basket at your feet is stirring again, tails beating against its wooden slats, as if the fish are protesting their captivity. You crouch, glance over the day's collection so far, and then turn back to the net. It's coiled and damp, ready for another cast. And you feel that twitch of anticipation in your chest, the same small thrill that comes every time you wonder what the next haul might hold. You gather the net across your arm, fingers finding their grip in the familiar roughness of the rope. Your movements are slower now, more deliberate. Each throw demands more strength as your arms begin to ache from repetition. You swing and release. The net arcs out like a living thing, spreading wide before it collapses into the water with that solid splash. Tiny droplets sparkle in the air, then vanish. Beneath the surface, you know it is settling. Sinkers pulling down, rope tightening, a silent trap waiting for the sea's reply. Moments pass, the boat drifts in lazy circles. You steady yourself with one hand on the gunwale, scanning the horizon, though there is nothing much to see but sky and water. A few other fishermen are distant specks, their figures moving in patterns you know. Well, row, cast, wait, pull. It's a dance all of you repeat, separated by distance but joined in rhythm. The rope at your side stirs, faintly at first. A vibration runs up your palm, so slight you wonder if it's just the movement of the current. You pull gently, testing, and then it comes a sharp, insistent tug, like a heartbeat under your hand. Your breath catches. This is no trick of the tide. Something is thrashing down there, fighting against the mesh. You brace your legs, wrap the rope once around your forearm for leverage, and begin to haul. The net resists immediately, jerking in bursts as whatever is caught struggles fiercely. Water sprays up with each pull, droplets stinging your sunburnt skin. Your arms burn with effort, but adrenaline steadies you. The rope is alive, twitching like a serpent in your grasp. Closer, closer you heave again, teeth clenched, feeling the weight increase. The surface breaks in a froth of silver and spray. A large fish bursts upward, half in and half out of the net, its body thrashing violently. It glitters under the sunlight, scales like polished bronze, eyes wide and frantic. You grunt, hauling with all your might as it twists, nearly slipping free. The boat tips dangerously for a moment, and your heart lurches. You know too well the stories of men pulled overboard by their own catch. With one last heave, you drag the net up and over. The fish crashes into the boat with a sound like wet leather slapped against wood. It thrashes across the planks, tail beating with wild strength, scattering water, smacking hard enough to leave bruises if it catches you. You lunge, pinning it with both hands, muscles straining as it bucks beneath your grip. For a moment, you wonder if it will win this contest, but slowly, its frenzy falters. Its gills pump desperately, then slower, until the movement fades. You let out a long breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. This is the kind of fish worth talking about. The kind that makes the market stall buzz when you lay it out among the smaller fry. Its weight will fetch more coin than a dozen little ones. You lift it carefully, lay it into the basket, and for a moment you simply sit, chest heaving, sweat dripping, heart pounding from the struggle. Mainstream history likes to tell of battles and warriors, of generals who win cities. But here, in your little boat, every catch is its own small war. A fish like that can mean the difference between going to bed full or hungry, between paying for wine at the tavern or drinking only water, between laughter in the evening and silence. You wipe your hands across your tunic, though the slime only smears wider. You shake your head, smiling faintly at the absurdity of it. This is the fisherman's uniforms, sunburn, salt, and fish scales that cling no matter how often you scrub. There's a joke among your peers that fishermen can never sneak anywhere. They carry the sea's perfume with them everywhere they go. As you prepare the net for another cast, a shadow moves across the water. You glance up and notice a shape circling another boat, drifting closer, its owner giving you a nod across the distance. You raise a hand in return. No words are exchanged, but the gesture is enough. Out here, every man fights his own battle with the sea, but there's comfort in knowing you're not entirely alone. You throw again. The net splashes. The waiting begins once more. Your arms tremble from fatigue. Your back aches, but you know the day is far from done. The sea is a demanding companion, and it will test you again before it lets you return. For now, you lean against the side, rope slack in your hand, eyes scanning the water. You know another fight is coming soon. The Gulf always has one more surprise waiting. The other boat drifts nearer, close enough now that you can make out the weathered face of its owner. His skin is darker than the sails of a merchant ship, toughened by years of exposure. His beard is streaked with grey, his eyes squinting in the glare. You know him, of course you do. Out here, you know everyone, even if you rarely speak beyond a nod. His name is the Mysticals, though the younger men call him Old Stones because he seems as unmovable as the breakwaters back at Piraeus. He raises a hand in greeting, the oar steady in his other. His boat is smaller than yours, patched with mismatched wood, but it floats, and that's all that matters. He shouts something over the water, voice cracked from shouting into the wind all his life. Any luck, boy? You grin, shaking your head in mock despair before pointing to the basket with exaggerated effort, pretending it's too heavy to lift. He laughs, a dry, barking sound that carries across the waves. His own net looks lighter, and he shrugs, resigned. Fishing is like that: one man finds plenty, another finds little, and the sea gives no explanation. He draws a little closer, close enough that you can hear without shouting now. His boat bumps lightly against yours, the hollow thud of wood meeting wood. You steady the contact with your foot, while he sits with a sigh, pulling a loaf of bread from a pouch at his side. He breaks off a piece and tosses it across to you. It lands clumsily on your deck, scattering crumbs. You nod your thanks, tearing off a bite. The bread is coarse, dry, but it fills the hollow in your belly. You wash it down with a sip from your flask. Together, the two of you chew in silence for a while, boats rocking gently against one another, nets drifting unseen below. Eventually, Old Stones begins to talk, as fishermen always do when the nets are soaking and the waiting grows heavy. He tells you of a strange current near Salamis, how the fish dart in odd patterns there, as though chased by something unseen. Dolphins, he suggests, though his tone makes it sound like a guess. He shifts to gossip from the port. A trader from Rhodes caught trying to cheat the scales. A tavern brawl that ended with two men in the harbour, splashing like drunken dolphins until the dockhands hauled them out. You laugh, shaking your head. The sea may hold its mysteries, but so does Athens, and neither are entirely safe. Historians still argue whether fishermen and sailors truly believed every story they told one another, or if tales were simply currency passed across the water to ease the boredom. But you've learned that in the long hours afloat, even the most ridiculous tale takes root in your mind. You remember once hearing about a man who swore he saw a fish with golden scales big enough to blind him, and though you doubt its truth, you sometimes catch yourself glancing at the waves. Half hoping, Old Stones leans back, eyes on the horizon. Storm brewing, he mutters, though the sky above looks harmless. You squint too, trying to read the faint smudge of clouds far to the west. Maybe he's right. His instincts are older than yours, carved into him like lines in driftwood. You've learned not to dismiss such warnings. Another boat appears, rowing closer from the south. It's Manes, a younger fisherman, cocky and sharp-tongued. He calls out as soon as he's in range, his voice carrying like a trumpet. Caught anything? Or are you feeding the gulls again? He laughs at his own joke, showing the broad grin of someone who still has all his teeth. You roll your eyes, shouting back, enough to fill your empty nets. Old Stones chuckles, shaking his head at the exchange. The younger man rows nearer, his net piled sloppily in the bottom of his boat. He claims he saw a dolphin leaping not far off, though his tone is too eager, too embellished. Careful, Old Stones warns. Dolphins bring good luck, but they also bring sharks. His voice is steady, not mocking. The younger man quiets a little at that, though his grin returns quickly enough. For a while, the three boats float near each other, the sea dotted with human presence like drifting islands. You share a few olives, trade bits of bread, and let the silence fill again. The gulls wheel above, their cries shrill and constant. The nets below tug faintly, teasing with promise, but not yet heavy. In moments like this, the sea feels almost like a village of its own. Each boat a home, each fisherman a neighbor. You may not share walls or streets, but you share the same tide, the same risks, the same long hours under the same sun. Conversations rise and fall like waves, sometimes friendly, sometimes sharp, but always bound by the water beneath. Eventually, the younger man rows off again, chasing the phantom of his dolphin sighting. Old Stones stays a little longer, then begins to drift back toward his own favored ground. Before leaving, he calls, "Keep your eyes sharp, boy. The sea tests you when you least expect it." His words hang in the air, half warning, half blessing. You nod, gripping your oars again, and watch his boat grow smaller. Alone once more, you feel the silence fold back around you. The gulls still circle, the sun still climbs, the nets still wait. But now, the air carries his warning, like an echo that lingers in the back of your mind. You turn back to the rope, testing its weight. Soon, you know, the sea will demand your attention again. The sun climbs higher, and with it, the heat presses down more insistently. The air that was crisp and briny at dawn now feels thick, almost heavy, carrying the faint temps of drying seaweed and fish oils. Your skin glistens with sweat, and every touch of the wooden oar feels hot, as though the sun has burned warmth into the grain itself. The world narrows into shimmering water and blazing sky, and you realize it is time to pause before the day drains you completely. Midday on the Gulf is the fisherman's quietest hour. The nets are down, the sea less cooperative, and even the fish seem to vanish deeper into cooler currents. You set the oars across the boat and let yourself drift, trusting the soft pull of tide and breeze. The gentle rocking almost lulls you into forgetting the hours of labor behind you. You reach for your cloth bundle, untying it with fingers sticky from salt. Inside is a modest meal, bread coarse enough to break unevenly, olives still slick with brine, and a wedge of dried cheese harder than the wood you sit on. You break the bread slowly, tearing off a piece, dipping it into the oil pooled at the corner of the cloth. The flavor is rough, earthy, but it fills your mouth with something solid. A handful of olives follows, their salt stinging your tongue, making you reach quickly for the flask of watered wine. The first sip is bliss. The clay flask is warm in your hand, but the liquid soothes your throat. It's not rich when the good stuff is for merchants and politicians, but it is enough to ease the heat. You lean back, close your eyes, and breathe slowly, the rocking of the boat almost like being cradled. You remember your mother saying once, "Eat slowly at sea. The gods notice when you hurry, and they'll make sure you choke." Whether true or not, you chew carefully, savoring every bite as though Poseidon himself is watching. The gulls have grown quieter, resting on the wind, drifting in lazy arcs. Even they seem subdued by the sun's weight. The water reflects so brilliantly that the horizon wavers, blurring the line between sky and sea. You squint, seeing shapes in the shimmer a ship, perhaps, or maybe just your imagination playing tricks. Fishermen tell of mirages on hot days, phantom islands or fleets that vanish the moment you row closer. Historians still argue whether such tales were early accounts of natural optical illusions, or just excuses for long, fishless hours. You tear another piece of bread and glance into the water beside the boat. The surface is glassy, calm, and for a moment you can see beneath a flicker of shadows darting deeper, too quick to catch. They're reminders that life stirs constantly below, even when your nets stay empty. The sea never truly rests. It just moves out of sight. After eating, you lie back against the side of the boat, letting the shade of the mast, however slight, fall across your face. The boards are warm beneath you, the kind of warmth that seeps into your bones until you can tell whether you're re-sweating from the sun or from the wood itself. Your eyes drift shut, but you don't allow yourself more than a light doze. A fisherman's nap is never deep. You've trained yourself to wake at the slightest tug of rope, the faintest shift of wind. To occupy your mind, you think of stories told on days like this. One tale recalls how the hero Theseus once sailed from Athens, disguised among fishermen, to escape an enemy. Another speaks of sea nymphs who surface at noon, singing so sweetly that even gulls pause to listen. There's a more peculiar one, too. Some men swear that if you sleep too deeply at midday, the sea spirits slip into your dreams and tangle your nets as punishment. Quirky, perhaps, but enough to keep you from drifting too far into slumber. You take another sip of wine, wiping your mouth with the back of your hand, and look toward the horizon again. A temple stands faint in the distance, its columns catching the sunlight. From this far, it looks like a toy, delicate and fragile. But you know it as a marker, a reminder that Athens is always watching, even from afar. You wonder sometimes what the priests think of men like you, those who trade prayers for practical labor, who offer coins at shrines, but spend their lives with nets instead of scrolls. The heat grows heavier still, pressing on your eyelids, making every movement feel slower, thicker. You fan yourself with a flat piece of wood. Though it does little good, the sea itself looks drowsy, ripples stretching lazily, as though even the waves are resting. You nibble at the last of the cheese, savoring its sharpness against the mellow bread, and then tie the cloth bundle closed again. For a while, you sit motionless, only the gentle rocking of the boat moving you. It is a strange peace, both soothing and unsettling. Soothing because the quiet feels like a gift. Unsettling because you know it never lasts. The sea is too changeable, too temperamental to allow stillness for long. You rest your hand on the net rope, testing its weight. Nothing yet. No tug, no vibration, no promise of movement. But that's the rhythm, bursts of struggle and long hours of patience. You sigh, leaning back once more. The day's heat has dulled your senses, but your thoughts wander freely. You think of home, of evenings with friends, of laughter echoing in taverns. You think of your father's calloused hands guiding yours. You think of how tomorrow will look exactly the same as today, yet somehow different. Fishing is never new, but it is never old either. And so you drift, afloat in the middle of the gulf, the sun high, your stomach filled, your nets silent. waiting for the next turn in the sea's endless conversation. The wine lingers faintly on your tongue, warming your chest as the boat drifts in its lazy midday rhythm. The heat is relentless, now pressing down on your shoulders, yet the lull of the water has a different effect. It stirs memories, draws out stories from the depths of your mind, the kind that surface only when there is nothing else to do but wait. The sea, after all, has always been a storyteller. Every ripple seems to carry whispers. Every gust of wind feels like a reminder of something ancient. You lean against the side of the boat, eyes half closed, and let the memories come. The first tale that rises is one your grandfather told you when you were small, sitting on the beach with your toes buried in the sand. He said the sea belonged first to the gods, and only later did men dare to claim it. Poseidon, with his great trident, ruled the waves. He could stir storms with a flick of his wrist, or calm waters with a thought. Once, long ago, when Athens was still young, the people prayed to him for a gift. He struck the earth with his trident, and a salty spring burst forth. But the people chose Athena instead, for she offered them the olive tree, steady and fruitful. Your grandfather chuckled each time he told it, saying, "Poseidon never forgave that slight. That's why he makes the sea so dangerous for Athenians." Historians still argue whether such stories were warnings, metaphors, or simply entertainment. But you know the tale well enough to feel a shiver each time the waves slap against your hull. You shift, adjusting the rope in your hand, but the net remains slack. The waiting continues. So your mind drifts further, wandering not to gods this time, but to men. You recall the old songs about the Battle of Salamis. Long before your boat ever touched these waters, fleets of warships clashed here. Themistocles, the general, tricked the Persians into sailing into these narrow straits, where the smaller Greek triremes could dart and ram. The sea must have boiled with noise, the deors pounding, bronze ramming, heads crashing, men shouting, men drowning. They say the victory saved Athens, saved all of Greece. And yet now, centuries later, you sit in the same waters with only gulls for company. The Gulf remembers, even if most men forget. You pick at a loose splinter in the boat's side, prying it with your fingernail, and another memory surfaces. This one is less heroic, more peculiar. A story you once heard from old stones, muttered late at night over wine. He swore there was a fish in these waters shaped like a man's head, with eyes that glowed in the dark. He claimed to have seen it only once, just before a storm nearly sank him. He called it a sea spirit's child. You laughed at the time, though uneasily, and the image has never left you. Quirky tales like that cling, resurfacing at quiet hours like this, when the silence feels too deep. The rope twitches faintly in your hand. You straighten, heart skipping, but it's nothing, just a swell rocking the net below. You exhale slowly, easing back into patience. The Gulf is playing with you, testing your nerves. Another story comes, this one more comforting. The dolphin tales. Everyone knows them. Dolphins guiding ships to safety. Dolphins rescuing men who fell overboard. Dolphins carrying messages from the gods. Some say a poet once leaped into the sea and was saved by one, carried on its back like a child. You've never seen one yourself, but when the waves grow too quiet, you find yourself scanning the horizon, hoping for that curved shadow to break the surface. Fishermen argue whether dolphins are simply clever animals or divine messengers. But either way, You know you would trust one more than a politician's promise. You let your eyes wander to the clouds, gathering faintly in the distance, smudges of grey against the bright sky. They seem harmless now, but they remind you that the sea can shift its mood without warning. Perhaps that's why the stories cling so tightly, because they make sense of the moods. Gods, heroes, spirits, dolphins, each tale a way of explaining what the water does when it refuses to explain itself. You hum softly, half a tune, half a memory. It's a song you've heard in taverns about sailors who tried to cheat the gods and ended up shipwrecked. The rhythm soothes you, keeps your hands steady on the rope. You imagine your father's voice, adding verses, laughing when he forgot the words. Songs, like stories, belong to the sea. They stretch across generations, carried from one boat to another, as much a part of fishing as the nets themselves. The sun begins its slow tilt westward. Shadows stretch across the waves, softer now, and a faint breeze stirs at your back. You check the rope again, still slack, still waiting. You sigh, lean your head against the gunwale, and watch the water flicker in the light. Every glimmer could be a fish, or just the sun playing tricks. You never know until the net rises. For now, you let the stories keep you company. Gods, battles, dolphins, monsters, they all swirl together in your mind, filling the silence, reminding you that you are never truly alone out here. The sea is crowded, not with men, but with memories, with myths, with whispers, carried on every tide. The breeze you felt earlier grows a little stronger now, threading its fingers through your hair, rippling the water in longer, sharper lines. You look up from the rope in your hands and notice how the sky has changed. What was once a clear blue dome is streaked with grey. The smudges on the horizon now gathering, thickening. It happens slowly at first, so slowly you might ignore it, but your instincts sharpen. Old Stone's S-warning echoes in your memory. The sea tests you when you least expect it. You pull the rope again, testing for any weight, but the net is slack. For now, the gulf has no more gifts. You decide not to cast again just yet. Instead, you coil the rope neatly, making sure it won't tangle when the boat begins to shift. A fisherman's mistake in fair weather is a nuisance, but in a sudden storm it can become disaster. The gulls sense it before you do. Their cries grow sharper, more restless. They wheel higher, not lazily but urgently, wings cutting against the wind as though fleeing something unseen. You watch them, uneasy. Birds are truer prophets than men. They do not lie about what's coming. The sea changes color to the bright, almost cheerful blue of midday begins to dull, darkening into a heavier shade, tinged with green. Waves lift more abruptly. No longer the gentle rocking you grew used to, but jerks and pulls that tug at the boat's sides. The water slaps harder against the hull, sending spray up over the gunwale. You wipe your face with your sleeve, already damp with sweat and brine. You steady yourself, planting your feet wider, gripping the oars. The wind whistles now, not loud but insistent, threading a low note into the quiet. You know this tune, it's the prelude to something worse. Historians still argue whether ancient fishermen were skilled meteorologists of their day, reading winds and clouds better than scholars, or whether they simply relied on instinct and luck. But standing here, feeling the shift in the air, smelling the sudden bite of ozone, you understand it's both. Experience teaches you to notice what others dismiss. Your stomach knots. Should you row back now, while the shore is still within reach. Or wait it out, trust that the clouds are bluffing. The answer is never clear. Too cautious, and you lose the day's work. Too bold, and you risk more than coin. The waves rise higher, slapping the hull with hollow thuds. The boat rocks harder now, each sway forcing you to brace. The net, heavy and wet at your feet, slides slightly, and you shove it back with your boot before it tips. You secure the basket too, wedging it against the stern so the dais catch one tea-spill if the boat lurches. Then comes the sound, a low rumble, faint at first, like a cart rolling on distant stone. Thunder, you crane your neck to the west. The clouds have thickened into a bruised wall, their edges curling like smoke. Lightning flickers faintly inside them, too far yet to threaten, but close enough to quicken your breath. The sea grows restless beneath you. Waves lift and drop the boat. Not violently yet, but with enough strength to remind you how fragile wood feels against water. You grip the oars, steadying the boat, dipping them into the rising swells. The rhythm changes. No longer the slow, hypnotic strokes of morning, but quick, sharp pulls to keep your craft aligned with the waves. Turn sideways, and you'll roll. Keep her straight, and you have a chance. The gulls have vanished entirely now, fled inland. That alone tells you enough. Birds know when the sea is no longer safe. You lick your lips, tasting salt, tasting unease. You mutter a quiet prayer, not desperate, just enough to acknowledge the gods. Poseidon, Athena, whoever might be listening. Fishermen never know which deity has their ear. So you spread your plea wide like a net, hoping one will answer. The boat creaks under the strain, wood groaning as waves slap harder. Spray hits your face again, cold and stinging. The horizon fades, swallowed by the advancing wall of grey. Your arms burn with effort as you row, the oars biting against the water. Each pull steadies you, keeps the boat from drifting broadside. For a moment, you think of Athens, of the people strolling the agora, blissfully unaware of what the Gulf is doing to you now. It seems unfair that life there can continue in calm, while here every breath is a gamble. But then, maybe they envy you too, for though the city is stone and noise, here you are alone, free, testing yourself against forces no politician can debate. A sharp gust nearly knocks you off balance. The boat tips, water sloshing inside. You scramble, heart pounding, steadying the oars again. The net shifts at your feet, heavy, slippery. You kick it aside, cursing softly. Every fisherman knows storms are as much about clutter as waves' loose nets. Baskets, ropes, all become hazards when the sea decides to shake you. Lightning cracks, closer this time, bright and jagged against the rolling clouds. Thunder follows almost immediately, booming across the gulf, vibrating through your chest. The storm is coming fast now, no longer a question but a fact. You row harder, the muscles in your arms screaming, your breath ragged. The temple's silhouette on the horizon becomes your beacon, faint against the darkening sky. You mutter again to the gods, this time louder, less patient. Let me see land again. I've paid my share today. The words vanish into the wind, but saying them steadies you. The sea bucks under you, testing your balance, testing your will. The boat creaks, groans, but holds. Your hands are raw from the rope, your shoulders ache, yet you pull and pull again. This is the fisherman's fight, not with armies or kings, but with a storm, sudden and merciless, demanding everything you have. And the storm has only just begun. The storm is in full voice now. The gulf heaves like a restless beast, every wave lifting your boat high, then dropping it with a stomach-turning plunge. The oars creak and groan in their sockets, the handles slick with salt water that stings your palms. Each pull feels heavier than the last, as though the sea itself is gripping the blades, trying to yank them away from you. You row anyway. The temple silhouette, faint and distant, at first becomes your anchor. The single steady shape on a horizon that keeps vanishing behind walls of spray. It flickers in and out of view with each rise and fall, but it's enough. Fishermen for generations have steered by those white columns, trusting them more than the shifting clouds. Historians still argue whether such temples doubled as lighthouses or simply as landmarks for men like you. Either way, tonight it is both. The wind lashes at your face, whipping strands of hair into your eyes, howling in your ears like an angry spirit. Your tunic clings to your body, soaked through, heavy as lead. You lean your weight into the oars, driving them deep, dragging the boat forward. The muscles in your arms scream, your back throbs, but rhythm is everything. Lose rhythm, and the boat will spin broadside. Spin broadside, and the sea will roll you under like a careless toy. Spray slaps across your face, cold and sharp. You spit salt, gasping, forcing your breath into steady bursts. You count the strokes in your head, 10, 20, 30 as if numbers could anchor you. The gulls are gone. The seabirds never wait out storms. That alone makes your chest tighten. You are alone in this. Another crack of lightning splits the sky, jagged and blinding. For a moment, the whole gulf glows silver. In that instant, you glimpse the rolling walls of water around you, dark and immense, towering higher than your boat deserves to face. Thunder follows immediately, booming like a drum of the gods. The sound rattles the planks beneath your feet. You remember your father's words, the ones he muttered when storms found him. Never curse the sea in anger. It listens. So you bite down the urge to shout, to spit frustration into the gale. Instead, you bow your head, teeth clenched, whispering through gritted breath. Steady, steady, steady. The boat lurches sideways, a wave slamming into the hull, hard enough to rattle your bones. Water spills over, splashing around your ankles. You scramble, heart hammering, shifting your weight, forcing the oars to correct the tilt. The boat groans but rights itself. Your chest burns with adrenaline, but you push it aside. You cannot afford fear. Fear is a loose rope in a storm. It trips, tangles, drags you down. You row harder. Your world narrows to the repetition of the strokes. Dip, pull, lift. The rest blurs the thunder, the spray, the black swell of clouds. Just dip, pull, lift, each movement a defiance, a refusal to let the sea take you. A thought cuts through the chaos, unbidden but sharp. Historians still argue whether fishermen of Athens saw themselves as warriors of a sort, fighting their daily battles in silence. Right now, you understand why the argument exists. Each wave feels like an enemy, each gust a weapon, and you, in your fragile wooden boat, a soldier with nothing but oars to strike back. Another flash of lightning illuminates the temple again. Closer now, hope flickers in your chest, though you don't dare let it swell too much. Storms play tricks. The shore can seem close, then retreat with every heave of the water. Still, you row toward it. chasing the glow of marble that promises safety. A rogue wave rises on your starboard side, taller than the rest. Your breath freezes as it slams against the boat, rocking it so violently you nearly lose an oar. Your hands burn as the slick wood slides, but you clamp down, fingers screaming, pulling it back into place. The net shifts violently at your feet, threatening to tangle around your legs. You kick it aside, cursing softly under your breath, promising yourself you'll recoil it once you're safe. If you're safe, your mind flickers to the stories told in taverns of fishermen who vanished in sudden storms, their boats found days later, drifting empty. Some swear sea spirits claim them, dragging their souls below. Others insist it's simply fate, the lottery of waves. You mutter again, louder now, to whichever god might be listening. Not today, not me. The temple grows clearer. You can almost count the columns between the sheets of rain. Your heart pounds, hope and fear knotted together. You row harder still, every stroke an argument against the storm's claim on you. Your arms tremble, your back aches, but you refuse to yield. The thunder rolls again, but this time it seems to echo behind you, not above. The storm is passing, slowly, reluctantly, like a predator circling one last time before withdrawing. The waves are still cruel, but a rhythm has returned, predictable, survivable. You ride them now, guiding the boat with steadier hands, each rise and fall carrying you closer to land. And then, through the sheets of rain, the faint outline of the port appears. Piraeus, the cranes, the docks, the scattered shapes of larger ships lashed tight against their moorings. Civilization, safety. You exhale shakily, muscles still taut, hands still gripping the oars, as though they are the only thread between life and death. The storm hasn't released you yet, but the sight of home steadies you. You row harder, the temple's silhouette replaced by the promise of voices, torches, and the firm ground of Athens beneath your feet. The storm still snarls behind you, but already its bite has weakened. The waves remain choppy, their peaks foaming white, but they no longer tower above your boat like walls threatening to swallow you whole. Instead, they shove and jostle, testing your balance rather than seeking to destroy it. The air carries the acrid scent of wet wood and salt. Cut now with a faint trace of smoke drifting from the port ahead of Athens' fires, its hearths, its endless cooking and forging. That smell feels like salvation. You keep rowing, though every muscle trembles with exhaustion. Your arms feel like ropes pulled too tight, your shoulders burn, and your palms are raw from the constant fight against the oars. Still, you row. With each stroke, the outlines of the port sharpen. The cranes look like skeletal arms stretching against the sky. The masts of merchant ships sway like a forest of bare trees, and faint voices begin to carry across the water distant shouts. The bark of a dog, the laughter of a child who doesn't know the danger you've just outrun. The water grows shallower here, changing color again. The deep, threatening blue of open gulf lightens to a murky green, flecked with sand, stirred by the waves. You recognize the shift instantly, and relief washes through you. You're close. You can almost feel the seabed beneath your boat. You steer toward the harbor mouth, passing the stone breakwaters built to shield Athens' lifeline from storms just like this. The gulls return first, their shrill calls slicing the air. They had fled inland when the storm gathered. But now they wheel and dive with renewed boldness, shrieking over the waves as if mocking your struggle. One swoops low over your boat, eyeing the basket of fish you've managed to protect through all of this. You bat it away half-heartedly, too tired for a real fight. The bird flaps back up, circling, waiting for scraps. As you slip into the shelter of the port, the contrast is almost overwhelming. Outside, the Gulf still rages with dark clouds and jagged lightning. Inside, though the waves still roll, the breakwaters blunt their fury, leaving only restless chop. The storm's roar muffles here, swallowed by the buzz of human voices. You exhale, chest heaving, and rest your oars across the boat for a moment, letting the current carry you forward. The docks are alive despite the weather. Merchants bark orders at slaves, unloading amphorae, their voices carrying above the din. Children dash between barrels, bare feet slapping against wet wood. Women with baskets hurry along, scarves pulled tight against the drizzle. Fishermen like yourself are already pulling in, tying off their boats, shouting to one another about their luck or misfortune. You steer closer, scanning for a space to dock. The port is crowded, as it always is. Athens breathes through Piraeus, and even storms cannot choke it. You spot a narrow gap between two larger fishing boats and angle toward it. The oars bite into the water, and with a grunt, you slide into the space. The hull bumps against the dock with a solid thud, the sound of safety. You tie the rope quickly, hands trembling but sure. The boat, your fragile companion through the storm, is finally still. For a moment, you just sit there, staring at the planks under your feet, feeling the ache in every bone, the relief flooding your chest. The storm has not taken you today. Then you hear the port properly. It's a cacophony, but after hours of thunder and crashing waves, it feels almost musical. Traders haggle loudly over the price of olive oil. A donkey brays in protest as its driver tugs it forward. Somewhere nearby, a flute plays, shrill and uneven, probably a child's attempt at practice. The air is thick with smells: grilled fish, tar, wine spilled on stone, sweat. Mainstream history tells us that Piraeus was Athens' beating heart, its lifeline of grain and trade. But here, standing on its slippery docks, you realize it's also the city's lungs. Every breath, every shout, every smell, a sign of constant life. Without it, the temples and marble columns inland would be nothing but empty monuments. You climb out of the boat, stretching your legs on the slick dock. The ground feels strangely steady after hours of rocking, though your body still sways unconsciously, as though the sea has imprinted its rhythm into your bones. You pull the basket of fish onto the dock, grunting with the weight. The silver scales glint even under the grey clouds, catching the eyes of nearby children. One boy stares at you, wide-eyed, until his mother tugs him away with a scolding. You glance back once at the Gulf. The storm still growls beyond the breakwaters, lightning flashing, waves thrashing. But it is outside now, no longer yours to endure. You mutter a quiet thanks, whether to the gods, the sea, or the stubbornness of your little boat. You're not sure. All you know is you're here, in the bustling chaos of Piraeus, alive. And now begins the second half of the Fisherman's work, the part that requires as much patience as the sea, but a different kind of skill entirely. The selling, the haggling, the endless din of the market, where voices rise louder than waves and tempers flare sharper than lightning. You hoist the basket higher, straighten your back despite its ache, and step into the flow of the port, merging with its ceaseless tide of people. The basket digs into your shoulder as you carry it across the slick planks of the dock. Each step feels heavier than the last, not because of the fish alone, but because your body is still buzzing from the storm. Your arms ache, your knees wobble slightly, and your palms sting from rope burns. But here in Piraeus, no one pauses to pity a fisherman's fatigue. The market waits, and fish do not sell themselves. The closer you get, the louder it becomes. The port market is its own sear tide of voices crashing into one another. Merchants shout their prices with theatrical gusto. Buyers argue loudly as if volume itself could lower the cost, and laughter bursts out in sudden pockets, swallowed quickly by the surrounding clamor. The air is thick with smells. Grilled meat, spices carried in from distant lands, vinegar sharp in amphorae, the unmistakable reek of yesterday's unsold fish already turning sour in the heat. You find your usual spot, a rough plank balanced over 2 barrels, and set the basket down with a thud. Silver scales gleam in the weak sunlight filtering through clouds, catching the attention of passers-by. Children stop to point, tugging at their mothers' hands. Old men squint, inspecting the fish with the slow seriousness of philosophers. Already, you feel eyes on your catch. A fellow fisherman sets up nearby, his basket far less impressive. He grunts as he lowers it and shoots you a quick glance. You know him, Nicias, always sour, always muttering about unfair tides and jealous gods. He leans closer and mutters, "Storm nearly took me." You nod, offering no reply. Everyone here has a storm story. Today, yours simply turned out luckier than his. The first customer approaches, a stout woman with sharp eyes and sharper elbows. She peers into your basket, her nose wrinkling at the smell, though her eyes gleam with interest. She picks up a fish, tests its weight, presses its side with a practiced thumb, then tosses it back. "Too small," she declares loudly, for everyone around to hear. "Barely enough to feed a cat." You smile thinly, unfazed. This is the game. She wants to lower the price before the haggling even begins. You reply in the same volume, letting nearby ears hear. "Too small for a cat, maybe, but enough for a feast if you know how to cook." A few onlookers chuckle, and the woman narrows her eyes, realizing she have to work harder. The haggling begins. She offers a pitiful amount of coin, and you counter with a number so high she scoffs. Back and forth, voices rising, hands waving, until at last you meet somewhere in the middle. She drops the coins into your hand with a dramatic sigh, as though you've robbed her, and carries the fish away with a look of quiet satisfaction. Historians still argue whether these markets were more about necessity or theatre, but standing here, you know it's both. Everyone needs fish, but everyone also needs the performance, the drama of the bargain, the pleasure of the verbal duel. Without it, the market would be nothing but silent exchanges of coin. And silence never lasts long in Athens. More customers come. A young man buying for his family, eager but uncertain, trying to appear confident in front of his new wife. An older merchant with gold rings on his fingers, clearly more interested in flaunting his wealth than in the quality of the fish. A slave sent on behalf of his master, repeating the instructions in a flat voice, careful not to overspend. Each negotiation is a new contest. Each coin earned another reminder that your struggle at sea was worth it. The basket grows lighter as the day wears on. Coins clink in your pouch, heavy and comforting. The ache in your arms is still there, but now it carries pride with it. You survived the storm, filled your nets, and now you're turning salt and sweat into sustenance for the city. Still, the market is no place of pure joy. There are shouts of anger when buyers accuse sellers of cheating on weights. There are cries of children who dart too close to wagons and get clipped by careless drivers. There are guards weaving through the crowd, reminding everyone that theft is punished swiftly and harshly. Beside you, Nicias mutters curses under his breath as his basket remains half full. He glares at your nearly empty one, envy written plain on his face. You offer him a slice of dried bread from your pouch, but he waves it off. The sea likes you better, he grumbles. You shrug. It isn't a matter of liking. You know it's a matter of patience, of timing, of luck that no one can control. As the sun dips lower, the crowd begins to thin. Housewives hurry home to start cooking. Slaves carry baskets on sore shoulders, and merchants retreat to taverns to drink away the day's frustrations. You sell your last few fish for a modest price, not worth much, but enough to empty the basket. You tie your pouch shut, weighing it in your hand. The coins aren't many, but they clink together like victory. This, you know, is what keeps Athens alive. Not the speeches of politicians, not the arguments of philosophers, but this, the daily trade. The endless cycle of catching, selling, eating. A fisherman's hands may be rough and scarred, but they carry the weight of the city as surely as the marble columns do. You wipe your hands on your tunic, leaving faint streaks of scales and brine. The day's hardest work is behind you now. The market fades into quieter sounds, the air thick with smoke from cooking fires, and your thoughts drift, as they always do, toward the evening tavern wine, lamplight, laughter. The reward that makes the exhaustion worthwhile. The weight of the coin pouch is a comfort in your hand as you leave the bustle of the port behind. The market fades into echoes, shouts of the last vendors, the clatter of carts rolling over uneven stones, the fading cries of gulls swooping low for scraps. Your legs ache from standing, your shoulders throb from rowing, and your stomach is already urging you toward the promise of wine and warm food. Evening in Athens is not about storms or nets or haggling. It's about the tavern, the place where fishermen and merchants alike set down the day's burdens. The taverns of Piraeus are not the grand symposiums of the philosophers. They are noisy, smoky, cramped places tucked between warehouses and stalls. Their walls are often no more than timber and plaster, their benches rough-hewn, their lamps filled with cheap oil. Yet, when you step inside, they feel like palaces not for their luxury, but for their relief. You duck through a low doorway, pushing aside a hanging cloth stiff with smoke, and are met with a rush of sound. Laughter bursts from a corner table where three men argue over dice. A woman sings faintly near the hearth, her voice half drowned by conversation but sweet enough to rise above it. The smell hits you too. Roasted fish, garlic, sharp wine, and sweat. It is the smell of humanity compressed into one room, stronger than the sea, but no less familiar. You find a place on a bench near the back, setting down your pouch with a small, deliberate thud. The tavern keeper notices immediately, wiping his hands on a cloth, his eyes sharp as any merchant's. He brings you a cup of watered wine and a slab of bread without asking. He knows your routine as well as you do. You take the cup gratefully, sipping slow at first, then deeper. The wine is rough, sour on the tongue, but after a day like today, it might as well be nectar. Across the room, Other fishermen gather in knots. They trade stories loudly, each man outshouting the next, each tale a contest for the best reaction. One swears his net nearly dragged him into the sea when a creature heavier than a man thrashed inside. Another insists he saw a dolphin guiding a school of fish straight into his boat, though the smirk on his face suggests it was more dream than memory. Quirky tales are as common as olives here, and you know better than to believe them all, but that doesn't make them less enjoyable. Someone calls your name. You glance over to see a friend waving, motioning for you to join. You carry your cup and bread, sliding into a seat among familiar faces. These are men you've known for years, men who have pulled you out of trouble more than once and cursed you just as often when you outsold them at the market. Together you share food, olives, lentils, a bit of grilled fish and laughter that comes easier now than it did on the water. The conversation flows as freely as the wine. One man complains bitterly about the storm, swearing the gods are cruel for sending it. Another argues that Poseidon spared him, not punished him. You join in with a wry smile, saying, if Poseidon truly wanted us gone, he wouldn't waste his time with wind, he'd simply forget to put fish in our nets. The table erupts in laughter, a little too loud, the kind of laughter that follows fear and relief. Historians still argue whether taverns in Athens were places of pure recreation or subtle politics, where alliances formed over cups of wine. You suspect both are true. Deals are made here as often as jokes, and though no one wears wreaths of ivy or debates philosophy in proper order, there is wisdom in these smoky rooms. Wisdom born of hard days and harder seas. The tavern keeper passes by again, and you drop a few coins into his hand. He nods, bringing another cup. You drink slower this time, savoring the hum that spreads through your chest, softening your aches, loosening your tongue. Someone starts a song at the next table. A simple tune about sailors who lost their way but found it again with the help of dolphins. The melody catches quickly. Soon half the room is humming along, voices weaving together into a sound that drowns out even the dice player's shouts. You tap your hand against the table in rhythm, feeling the music pull you. Your mind wanders briefly to the storm, to the fight with the waves, but the memory feels softened now, distant, almost as though it happened to someone else. That's the gift of the tavern. It takes the day's struggles and turns them into stories, smoothing their edges until only the laughter remains. The lamps burn lower as evening stretches into night. Shadows flicker across the walls, and the air grows thicker with smoke and heat. Cups clink, voices rise and fall, bread is torn, songs falter, then rise again. You lean back on the bench, eyes half closed, letting the sound wash over you like a gentler tide. Eventually, men begin to leave in twos and threes, swaying slightly as they head toward the docks or the narrow alleys beyond. Some go home to families, others to empty shacks. You linger a little longer, finishing the last of your wine, unwilling to break the spell too soon. At last, you push yourself to your feet, pouch lighter but heart steadier. You step back into the cool night air, the noise of the tavern fading behind you. The sky is calmer now, the clouds broken, stars peeking through in scattered patches. The storm has passed. You walk slowly toward the shore, your body heavy with exhaustion but your mind eased. The tavern's warmth still lingers in your chest, a comfort you'll carry to the water's edge. And there, by the shore, another kind of silence awaits you. The The streets thin as you leave the tavern behind, the sound of laughter and clinking cups fading into the distance. Your steps are slower now, not hurried, not weary, but measured, the kind of walk that comes when the body is tired yet satisfied. The cool night air brushes against your skin, carrying the faint sense of smoke, salt, and pine resin from the hills. It feels like a blessing after the heat and chaos of the day. You follow the familiar path toward the shoreline, the cobblestones uneven under your sandals. Torches flicker here and there, casting long, wavering shadows. A dog barks from some alley, then falls silent. The rest of Athens hums faintly in the distance, voices drifting from houses. The occasional clatter of pottery, a child's giggle before being hushed by a parent. Life goes on inland, but here, near the port, the rhythm slows. The sea greets you as you step onto the sand, its voice calmer now, the storm spent, its fury forgotten as though it had never happened. The waves lap gently at the shore, a soft rhythm that could almost be mistaken for breathing. The moon has risen high, silver and solemn, laying a trembling path of light across the water. You stop and watch it, transfixed. After everything, the nets, the storm, the market, the tavernet, is this moment that feels the truest. Alone with the sea, you are reminded why you return each morning, no matter the risks. You sit on a flat stone near the water's edge, loosening the straps of your sandals, letting your feet sink into the cool sand. The grains cling between your toes, damp and grounding. You lean forward, resting your elbows on your knees, listening to the endless rhythm of waves. The basket, empty now, lies at your side. It smells faintly of fish still, but without weight it seems harmless, just wood and rope waiting for tomorrow's work. Your thoughts drift, as they always do at night, back to the sea's mysteries. You think of your father, who once sat in this same place, staring at the same horizon, telling you that the sea gives more questions than answers. You think of the gods, their wrath, their silence, their indifference. You think of the dolphin stories, of the storm's rage, of the temple's steady silhouette guiding you home. And you think of tomorrow, which will begin the same way today did, with dawn over Piraeus and the smell of salt heavy in the air. Historians still argue whether fishermen like you were respected or dismissed, whether your work was seen as noble or simply necessary. But in this quiet, you know those debates don't matter. What matters is that the city eats because you dared the waves. What matters is that you lived another day, carried another story back to shore. What matters is that the sea, though untamed, has not claimed you yet. A soft breeze stirs the reeds nearby, whispering like voices from another world. The moonlight glints on the ripples, scattering silver across the gulf. Your eyes grow heavy, not with wine, but with the slow pull of exhaustion. The waves seem to lull you, rocking your thoughts as gently as the boat rocked this morning. You draw your cloak tighter around your shoulders, lean back against the stone, and exhale slowly. The air is cool, the world hushed, and your heartbeat finally steady. Tomorrow the nets will wait again. The sea will test you again. The market will clamor again. But tonight belongs to silence, to the moon, to the calm sea and its whispered promise of rest. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the endless hush of the tide, and let yourself fade into the quiet comfort of the night. Now the story slows, soft as the tide retreating across the sand. The bustle of the market has faded, The laughter of the tavern has gone still, and only the sea remains, breathing gently in the moonlight. You sit at the edge of Athens, watching the silver path shimmer across the water, each wave folding over the next like a lullaby without end. The storm, with all its fury, feels distant, gouged, a memory washed smooth by time. The fear you carried in your chest has loosened, replaced by a calm that spreads through your shoulders, your arms, your weary hands. You survived, and survival has its own kind of peace. The city sleeps behind you, its lights dimming, its voices hushed. The port rests 2 boats, rocking lightly in their moorings, nets hung up to dry. Everything has slowed, everything has softened, until even your thoughts move like drifting clouds across a quiet sky. The moon hangs steady above, patient and watchful. Its light catches the ripples, scattering silver sparks that fade as quickly as they appear. You breathe in the cool night air, tasting the faint salt, letting it settle you further. Your eyelids grow heavier, your body heavier still, as if the earth itself were pulling you gently downward. You remind yourself that tomorrow will come, just as it always does, with gulls crying at dawn and the sea demanding your patience again. But that can wait. For now, there is only this quiet, this calm, this endless rhythm of waves against the shore. And with that rhythm, you let yourself drift, slower and slower, until the night carries you into rest.